I want to welcome everyone to this 8th workshop session on behalf of Urantia Association International Education Committee. The workshop sessions are recorded on video for future study purpose use. Please turn off your camera if you do not like your image being used for video records, and ask to speak off the record at any time when you do not want your say to be part of the videotape. In this way, your part will be cut out of the video during editing. Today, Rick Lyon will talk about social organization. Rick lives in Crawfordsville, Indiana, USA, and has been a student of Urantia Book since 1978, when he found the book in a landfill. He's married to Susan, who also found the book in 1978, but not in a landfill. They met for the first time at a Jesus birthday picnic in 2006 and became instant friends, often working together on Urantia projects. This past January, they got married. Congratulations. Rick says that it is a joy to have a partner who loves God and Jesus and our book as much as he does. Of course, he's no longer the sole expert on the teachings in his house, so that sometimes is a little humbling, but more often it is enlightening. One of his greatest experiences has been to travel to Israel with a group of 38 students of the Urantia Book. On the Mount of Ascension, Rick got to read the words of Jesus, and he said farewell to the apostles on the very spot that it took place. Rick chose this topic on social organizations because he has been actively involved in Urantia organizations since 1998, when invited to serve as the secretary of Greater Lake Michigan Urantia Association. Since that time, he has also served with his local association as president and vice president and newsletter editor for Circle Seeker. With the National Association, he has served as the communications chair, developing their website and the newsletter, and now serves as the Vice President and Education Committee Chair. He is also a member of the Orpington Society. In 2003, he was invited to become the study group chairman of Urantia Association International. In 2008, he served as the executive director of UAI until 2014. In this role, he got to travel to Spain, Colombia, Peru, and Canada. Rick was also a teacher facilitator for Urantia Book Internet School and served on the board of that school as well. Thank you, Rick, for your willingness to serve all of us today. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Jeannie. Good morning and good afternoon or good evening to each of you, depending on where you're at, what time zone you're in. So what I'd like to do is share my screen, and I've got a PowerPoint presentation that will go along with this here. So let me do that right now. So if you wish to say something, raise your hand using the little symbol or wave at us. Those joining by phone, just say, hey, I want to say something. I had a hard time whittling down all the material available, so stop me if I need to take a breath or slow down. Jeannie, would you please watch and tell me whenever someone wants to contribute? We have a lot of people here today, so please keep your comments brief and on topic. Susan is creating a list of students as they join the meeting today, and I will use that to ask each of you to take a turn reading a short quote from the screen. I think this will help us participate without talking over each other or fearing of interrupting someone else. It's important to our social organization gathered here today that everyone participate. We'll talk more about that later. So whoever reads the screen gets the first chance to comment on it. Those of you on the phone, when it's your turn, I'll read the screen for you and then invite you to have the first comment. So as Jeannie said, I was a teacher facilitator for the Urantia Book Internet School and found that the person who learns the most from a course is the person who creates it. So thanks to Jeannie for this opportunity and to all of you for joining and participating in this course. I don't want to get into discussions about specific organizations or specific pros and cons about any particular organization or group. Our goal here today is to learn about social organizations as entities themselves, why they're important, what they can accomplish, and what are some of the difficulties in creating and maintaining a successful social organization, and what is their value to the individual and to society. So here's a list of items I was asked to include in this class, and I have a lot of information to share, so we may not get to all of it. But our topic is social organizations. But let me first emphasize the importance of the individual. Other than the personal teachings of Jesus, I believe the Urantia Book is unique in its teaching about the value and importance of every single individual person. So how important are we as individuals? So Susan, you're first up. Would you mind reading the screen and then commenting on it if you'd like?
I can't see the end of it.
Let me see if I can move this out of the way.
Thank you.
There you go.
God is so trusting, so loving, that he gives a portion of his divine nature into the hands of even human beings for safekeeping and self-realization.
If you'd like to share a comment on that.
Well, when we did the rehearsal, I said true dat, but what I'd like to say is it's just such a joy and a blessing to know that God dwells within, and it's a responsibility too to give back cooperation for that great gift.
All right, thank you. So each of us as individuals is so important that the creator of everything sent us our own personal, unique, individual spiritual guide and helper, our thought adjuster, to lead us along the pathways from where we are today to someday return to our Father from which we both came. The devotion of this indwelling spirit to the individual is described as touchingly sublime and divinely fatherlike. Our Father in paradise has reserved this form of personal contact with us as individuals exclusively for himself. So I'd like for you to think about that for a moment. The God of all, the creator of everything, has reserved this intimate form of personal contact with each of us as individuals exclusively for himself. No other entity, being, or personality in all the universe of universes will ever share such a relationship with you. The Father of all loves us so much that he gave a part of himself to guide us away from evil, to guide us and teach us during this long journey, this ultimate adventure to paradise. Thought adjusters are primarily concerned with our spiritual development, but they are very interested in our life and our achievements here on earth. They enjoy contributing to this and sharing in the health, happiness, and prosperity of this life they live with us. This indwelling gift from God is a loving leader and our safe and sure guide through this dark and uncertain mortal life. As we travel this road, we should not be afraid, because this peace of God himself is with us at all times, ever vigilant to our needs and constantly urging us forward in the path of progressing perfection, guiding but not forcing us along the path of truth, beauty, and goodness. We are never alone or beyond instantaneous reach of God's personal presence, guidance, and love. I'd like to point out something here, that during the Apollo missions to the moon, there was a 2-second delay in communications. So when someone in Houston said, "Apollo, this is Houston," it was 2 seconds before the astronauts heard that, and then 2 seconds back for them to respond. And our rovers on Mars right now, when JPL sends a signal to that rover, it takes 20 minutes just to go from here to Mars, for that signal to get from California to Mars. But with God, our communication with him is instantaneous. So just think about that for a second. So I'll read this slide. So do you not realize that the hope of a better nation or a better world, and if I can add, a better social organization, is bound up in the progress and enlightenment of the individual? So not only are we important and valuable as individuals to God, we are also important and valuable to all the various social organizations that we are part of. The word organization appears in the Urantia Book 494 times. The word leader, or some form of it, appears 686 times. And the word teach, or some form of it, appears 1,365 times. The word laziness appears once. So let's look at these questions. The word organization is one of those words that presents a conundrum in our minds. Most of us want organization and praise it when we see it, but few of us want to be organized by others. We fill out job resumes claiming to be well organized as a positive skill, but resist being part of an organization. Even when we are in an organization, we often resist the restrictions or authority necessary for a successful organization. Sometimes if the organization doesn't do what we want, we quit. Or when the organization calls on us and needs us, we often find excuses not to serve. So we seem to know organization when we see it, but who can give a good definition of organization? So what is an organization? So let's, who's first up here? Jeannie, would you like to comment on that question? What is an organization? Oh, I guess I should remind you, unmute yourself.
Yes. In my view, an organization is important to serve because it's a way to unite our forces, intelligences, and resources to serve. But as you pointed out in a previous quote that you showed here, the enlightenment and the progress of the individual is a basis, because an organization is nothing more nor less than the sum of the members. So we need to be prepared personally to serve, and to serve better, according to the Urantia Book, is through our personal preparation, our personal progress in spirit and in knowledge of the truth and in love. This is my view about this. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jeannie. And after we call on a person and that, if anyone else has a comment, feel free to jump in and say so.
I'd like to say something. Could I say something?
Go ahead, Susan.
I just realized when you were reading about the individual and the relationship with God that is the basic social organization between personalities, is ourselves and God. That's the beginning of all social organizations. So when we join an organization of any kind, family or any kind, we bring God with us to that group. We each do. So that's kind of a wonderful thing.
Yeah. All right.
Rick, it's Barbara.
Go ahead, Barbara.
Could I add to what Susan just said? Because it occurred to me that her description of an organization, when you see a person, you also see God, is a cosmic definition of organization. I've really been thinking a lot about what's different about Urantia Book readers and discussions of these topics and other groups that I'm in. But I just wanted to add the word cosmic. I think that we're challenged to see things cosmically. And when you look at just a group of people you're with, if you see them all the way Susan described, I think we have that that cosmic philosophy, consciousness, whatever you want to call it.
That's a very good point. I'm glad you added the word cosmic to that, because I think that's exactly
Thanks,
her
Barb.
point. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's address the next question. So what does an organization do, and why is that important? So who's next on our list? Myra?
Yeah,
Myra,
can
would
we
you like
say,
to comment on that?
Ed Owen wanted to say something.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go
well,
ahead.
I was raising my hand. I don't think anybody could see it though.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Ed.
So this is about the organization. It's a group of like-minded people within an individual with specific goals who grab together, and that forms an organization. And that's, as it is, I see it in a nutshell.
So a group of like-minded people with similar goals.
Yeah, well, they get together and they come up with these goals, and they have to organize themselves to proceed on whatever these goals are.
Yeah.
But we have a goal, and it's a huge goal, so
Yeah.
we're sure that's the reason we're all together, because we have these goals that we're trying to make this place a better place for everyone to live.
There you go. There
Thank
you
you.
go.
I have a, sorry, Rick,
No, it's all
I
right.
have a saying about organization, you know, that I always say to people, if you want to go fast, you do it alone. If you want to go far, you do it as a group. An organization as a way for people to get together for a common goal, just like Ed said. But organization also have a mission that's prevalent in the goal setting. And many types of organization exist, you know, some self-serving organization, and there's always a tendency for organization to self-serve itself, you know, to be self-serving and forgetting why it was built, why it was organized as such. And I think the type of organization that Urantia readers are is serving to others, is a service to the rest of the world. So there's, you know, probably different type of organizations, social organization, spiritual organization, you know, money organization, whatever you see it as. And some people will go to those organizations depending on their own interests. And in my experience with different organizations, because I belong to a few of them, it's always, there's a tendency, there's a very fragile balance between being self-served and serving the mission of the organization. So if an organization cannot, you know, keep on focusing on its own mission, then it doesn't have any need to exist. And then it will implode at some times. And we see that in many organizations. When they cease doing what they were meant to do, they cease to exist gradually, because they don't attract. And we know that love, like God, if we are a cosmic organization, love needs to flow through us to others. If we want to keep that on our own self, we just implode. It doesn't work anymore. So that's my idea of some form of organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Gaetan. I think that's a very important point to make, is that, you know, we have to be careful that organizations don't start focusing on preserving the organization by, you know, building membership and fundraising and making rules and regulations, and forget about what their real mission is and accomplishing that. So that's a very good point. Anyone else? All right, so let's go to the next question there. What does an organization do, and why is that important? Myra, would you like to respond to that? We'll give you first shot at it here. Be sure to unmute yourself. I can't see everyone on the screen here, but.
Is Myra still with us?
Is Myra still with us?
You just need to go in the participants. You'll see the name of everyone.
Okay. Let's see here. All right. Who's next?
Flora is next.
Flora, would you like to address that question, please?
You're mute.
No, I was going to start with just the definition of organization, and then from the very beginning before involving the world organization in the cosmic idea, but it was already spoken, so it's not necessary.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Does anyone else want to comment on that question? All right. Well, let's go to the next one then. So what makes an organization social? You know, we're here today talking about social organizations. So what is the social aspect of an organization? Susan Owen, we've got you next on the list here. Would you like to comment on that?
Well, how about it has people?
There you go.
I don't have a thought on that. I'll leave that for someone else.
All right. So what about,
I would say about this question, what makes an organization social? When the interest of the organization is to raise the welfare of the interest, either of its participant, its member, or people at large. You know, social organization in any countries or cities are involved in something useful in their own community. As an example, many years ago, traveling to Colombia, I had the opportunity of going to a Passover president for the Lions Club. I think it was the Lions, it was in Medellin. And I was at the table of all the president, and I asked the coming out president, you know, the one that was being not removed, but his place being taken over by the new president. And I asked him what was the use of this social organization. And then he gave to me as an example, he said, well, you look at the US, how many social organizations that exist there. And if it would not be for those social organizations, probably they would be as poor as we are in South America, because we don't have as many social organizations that take care of so many things that people need. And government cannot take over all those tasks. So social organizations, sometimes they dedicate themselves to an area of needs in society that the government or other group of people are not able to address at that time. So it has many goals, in fact. There are social organizations for health, others for getting people to get together, whatever. That's my say. Thank you.
Yeah, that's interesting that social organizations a lot of times do things that government can't do or won't do. Okay. All right, so we'll move on. Our topic is
just a second. Joy Brent wants to say something.
Oh, Joy, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't really know how to raise my hand the way you were saying.
I can't.
Other than just raise my hand physically, I don't know how to do the raise hand thing on here. But anyway.
Whenever you need to say something.
Do what?
Just break in and say, hey, I need to say something.
Oh, okay. So, well, the Urantia Book, in terms of social organization, the Urantia Book says that society was born not merely as an association of numbers of people, but as the organization of intelligent cooperators. So what makes a social organization is cooperation, and in my opinion. And so people are cooperating for whatever the purpose is, if it's, you know, food or, you know, protection. And they talk about how actually some of our natural urges, like I think it's sex hunger and or food hunger and sex love and those kind of things actually helped bring us together. So actually so people cooperate in order because they recognize into like a social organization, because they recognize that by such cooperation they're able to better meet their goals. Mm-hmm. And so the protection of society and the everything that you get out of a social organization is more than what you can do singly, except for solitary messengers who don't have any organization or government. But, you know, for humans anyway, and for actually most personalities, organization, which is necessary. And of course, the whole universe and the grand universe and even the master universe is organized.
Right. I think that's one of the things that I didn't understand before, was that that I discovered with the Urantia book, was how well organized everything actually is. You know, before the Urantia book, you think it's just kind of, everything just happens. But once you get the Urantia book and start reading about how well everything is actually organized, and all the people and personalities that are involved with making everything work the way it does, it's an amazing thing.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Hey, Rick, it's Barbara again. I like Joy's question about how to raise your hand. I'm trying to learn more about Zoom. I use GoToMeeting more than I use Zoom. And I can't figure it out either. I don't know if it's a waste of time to tell us how to do that. But nonetheless, I had a question for Joy. Do you have a page reference handy for that phrase, intelligent cooperators? I love that.
Yeah, let me see. Hang on.
Or a reference, either one. Yeah.
Just a second. Let me do a search just a second.
While Joy's doing that, I'll talk about the raising hand thing. If you go to the participants list at the top, just
at the top. Okay.
On participants, and then go down and highlight your name. Down at the bottom, you'll see raise hand.
Oh yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Great.
I don't think I can see that, but Jeannie, if you can keep an eye on that, I'd appreciate it. Are you able to watch that? Okay, good.
Joy's muted.
Hey, Joy, you're muted.
I am looking for that quote. It'll take me a couple minutes.
Okay.
May I say something while you're looking for that?
Oh, I found it. It's paper 68, section 1, paragraph 4. You want me to read the whole paragraph?
Sure.
It says, primitive human beings early learned that groups are vastly greater and stronger than the mere sum of their individual units. 100 men united and working in unison can move a great stone. A score of well-trained guardians of the peace can restrain an angry mob. And so society was born, not of mere association of numbers, but rather as a result of the organization, and that's in italics, of intelligent cooperators. But cooperation is not a natural trait of man. He learns to cooperate, first through fear, and then later because he discovers it is more beneficial in meeting the difficulties of time and guarding against the supposed perils of eternity.
All right, thank you, Joy. Oh, Susan, go ahead. You like to comment?
Yes, I wanted to comment because as you were reading all of that earlier, Joy, it reminded me that all of those responses that you mentioned are in response to urges from the 7 adjutant mind spirits. They actually place those feelings in us to bring us together and to have us learn and grow spiritually. So I just did a study on the 7 adjutants recently, and all of those things I thought were natural human tendencies are actually put out there as urges from them for us. Fear and all of those things that you mentioned. Survival, all those survival traits.
Right, that's what gets us started. And then we actually intelligently start to recognize the benefits.
Right. Thanks for mentioning all that.
All right. Okay, so our topic is social organizations, and it's difficult to perceive any organization that is not a social organization because organizing involves, as people have commented here, many multiple personalities, very different people and entities. So very few things we do are done only through our own efforts. So something as simple as hosting your child's birthday party requires a social organization. So you create the idea. You have to work with your family and friends to determine a time and date. You have to coordinate with your spouse the financial requirements versus the fundraising needed to provide for the event. And you have to find someone to bake the cake and buy the presents and clean up afterwards. And sure, you could do all that yourself, but you would probably not enjoy the party because you might be the only one there. So social organization is just a matter of finding others to help you do something and then coordinating their efforts and leading them to be all at the same place at the same time for the same purpose. And if each person only has a small task in conducting the event, then they feel like they contributed to the success of that event without being overwhelmed, and they'll praise you for being well organized. So I chose this topic on social organizations from the list of classes that Jeannie suggested because I've been actively involved, as Jeannie told you earlier, with Urantia organizations since 1998 when I was invited by Bob Salone to be secretary of the Greater Lake Michigan Urantia Association. And my response to his invitation was, who, me? So I'd never done anything like that before, but with the help of Mark Kurtz. Mark was supposed to be here today, but something came up, so unfortunately he's not here with us. So, but I replaced Mark Kurtz as secretary, and I stepped into my first role in a Urantia social organization. And prior to that, I was one of those members who I sent my dues each year, but I never really knew why. Then in 2008, I became the executive director of UAI until 2014, when working a full-time job in a steel mill and keeping up with the demands of a growing social organization became too much, and I had to give up the one that wasn't helping pay the bills. So in that position, as a leader in a social organization, as a director at the time, one of my great frustrations was having someone call up and say, why isn't anyone doing anything? Keep in mind, and Gaetan can verify this for sure, that the 12 of us on the board were up to our eyeballs in work and doing it 7 days a week for this revelation. And this is why communication is so important to the success of any social organization. So don't think of communication as tooting your own horn, but rather as telling people that the caravan is leaving, and if they want to go along, they better get on board. Telling people about our successes and our challenges often inspires them to step up and to serve, because people want to be part of the success. They want to participate. They want to do something. So they just need someone, a leader in a social organization, as a venue for doing such things. So, and then sometimes people would call it and say, you need to put a book in every library in America. Well, I learned to say, you're so right about that. And what can we do to help you do that? Which is really what a social organization is about. Helping you do those things that you think need to be done or that you want to do, but can't do on your own. A social organization gives you access to resources you may not have, such as money, people, ideas, encouragement and positive feedback, and spiritual rewards. And then a very important part of leadership in any social organization is delegating responsibility and workload. People want to feel important. They want to be involved, and they want to be part of the success. A good leader gives the group members the opportunity to contribute, to serve, and to share in the credit for that success. Everybody wants to be part of something successful. So another one of the frustrations was that one or two people on the board who volunteered to serve, but they didn't do anything. They always had excuses for missing meetings, like my step-nephew's friend's cousin had a birthday party or something. Or they would have all these grand ideas but never implemented any of them. But it always sounded impressive. So as a leader, you get what you expect. And if you expect nothing, that's usually what you'll get. But if you expect someone to do something, or you ask them to do something, often they will either do it or quit, maybe, which opens the door for someone who will do something. my point here is that what we're doing in Urantia social organizations is too important to choose leaders based on their body temperature. So while I can name a few frustrations, I can name you 100 enjoyments because I was part of a Urantia social organization. For example, the 2004 conference in Chicago, the 2011 Leadership Symposium, publishing and distributing over 2,000 study group guides, sending 74 books to a study group in Africa where 75 people shared one book, helping to place a book in every library in Ireland, and meeting and becoming friends with other students of the teachings in India, Pakistan, Israel, South Africa, Zambia, Malawi, Russia, Ukraine, Estonia, Italy, Greece, Netherlands, Denmark, Canada, Mexico, Cuba, Haiti, Peru, Colombia, Chile, Brazil, Argentina, Indonesia, Korea, and many others, all because this farm boy from Indiana joined a social organization. I know that was kind of a long list of countries there, but I've got a point with that, and we'll get to that later on. So I would never have been so fortunate otherwise, but for joining a social organization. So I have more friends, good friends, that I enjoy seeing and working with than I could ever have dreamed of before becoming part of a social organization. And I often tell people that because of joining a Urantia or social organization, I've done things that I never thought I could do or would do. So some people complain about the government here in the United States spending money to go to the moon. So going to the moon was the goal and purpose, but the greatest benefit of spending all that money to go to the moon, which was a grand achievement in itself, was the need to train thousands of scientists and engineers to do it. The need to educate thousands of children in math and science and giving them something exciting, an exciting reason to learn. To force the invention of materials and tools to accomplish the goal. So while going to the moon was important, learning how to do it and developing the skills to do it was exponentially more important. And that changed the world. The effect of going to the moon on technology and society had as much beneficial impact on our world as a major war would have had, as we saw with World War II. The explosion of technology from that. And the Urantia book talks about how wars do that for society. But the Apollo project also did that, except in this case, billions of people for generations to come will benefit from this explosion of technology, and only a few brave men died in the effort. So the Moon Project was probably the largest social organization of all time, because it literally took a team of hundreds of thousands of people with tens of thousands of leaders to make it happen. It wasn't just one social organization, but a network of social organizations working together for the same purpose, each one doing what they do best to contribute to the whole project. NASA is an organization of support for the smaller organizations and individuals within NASA. They endeavor to make all those who participate in the NASA mission grow stronger for their own purposes, while at the same time doing the work that NASA needs done. As they work under the support and leadership of NASA, NASA doesn't do anything to deplete their capabilities to achieve what they believe is important for themselves. So building smaller groups strengthens the whole organization. So I think we can correlate this to Urantia Association International building its local associations and to the Urantia Book Fellowship building their local societies. The parent organization teaching, providing for, and nurturing the child organization for the strength and purposes of the family as a whole. A study conducted by the Columbia University School of Business said, quote, NASA's most significant contribution is in the area of advanced systems design, getting an organizationally complex structure involving a great variety of people doing a great variety of things in many separate locations to do what you want, when you want them to do it, even while the ultimate goal is not yet well defined, unquote. Is this not similar to the challenges facing our Urantia social organizations today? Getting a great variety of people to do a great variety of things in many separate locations in order to accomplish all the great things that need to be done when we need them to be done, even while our ultimate goal is not yet well defined. And I think Will made a comment on that earlier about our ultimate goal. So, as Urantia social organizations, we can learn a lot from other social organizations on how to accomplish our goals and our objectives. So just imagine a network of social organizations with a spiritual mission, with thousands of people working together with hundreds of leaders guiding us and showing us the way. Just imagine these social organizations working in partnership with God and each other. What great things can we, you and I, accomplish? And just imagine how you personally can benefit from being part of such a social organization through the training and experience and the friendships you would gain and use in the future, all because we pursue a common goal of disseminating the teachings around the world, bringing mankind closer to God, and the real pursuit of peace on earth and goodwill to all mankind. So, who all here is a member of a social organization? So, raise your hand, I guess. Just who's a member of a social organization? Well, we pretty much all are, in some form. So what do you think is the most important social organization that you belong to? So,
Can I say?
Go ahead, Gaetan.
Study groups.
Study groups, okay. That's one.
Why, as an analogy to what you just said, you're talking about social organization like UAI, the fellowship, and extending itself across the world, and so in different organization that has the purpose, the same purpose, and for social organization to work well, like ours, they need a well-defined mission and goal statement, so people are not losing their effort in all kinds of ways. But if I can make an analogy about study group and social organization,
Sure.
like UAI or the fellowship, study groups are outside the political purview of these two organizations, but they are like the family structures.
Yep.
And they can be thousands and thousands of them. And I remember what the Revelator said about social organization. They need to be loosely organized. And when the organization like UAI or the fellowship organize themselves, the tendency is to over-organize things, because, as we grow, the structure of it gets more complicated, and the UAI is slowly getting to that level where it's getting to the, when there's so many of us around as organization, the tendency would be to over-organize ourselves. As yet, study groups are loosely organized. Their main function is to raise consciousness, cosmic consciousness, and deepen spiritual perception. And if we are thousands and thousands of us doing that same thing, slowly with our friends, with our family, in the same group, raising that awareness of cosmic consciousness and raising slowly spiritual awareness of God within oneself, then so the larger organization can better accomplish its goal. But it needs something to stand on. And it needs also to promote those small organizations, just like government needs to promote family structure, needs to work for family. And the Urantia Book says as much, that the human family is the unit on which the whole social organization of society is built. If that small structure is not present, well, no need to organize the big structure because it'll become a dictatorship, kind of. Everybody will be looking to the government to fix their own problem. And then it'll be overly organized and it won't be effective anymore. So we need those many, many thousands of little structure, which I call study group. And for me, this is the main unit from which the other one will sprout. Leadership will sprout from those small organizations. because awareness will be raised about the goal that we want to achieve all together, which is join God in this effort to come to men and men come to God. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Hello, Rick.
Yes, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
It's Charles. I've been a little frustrated. I've been listening for since 5 of the hour, but apparently I wasn't heard. I finally figured out how to. I could hear all of you, but I couldn't speak.
Yeah, you were
Charles
muted.
Olivier from Santa Fe. Yes, I apparently I had to hit. I'm on the phone star and 6. I didn't get the number 6. I'd like to add, if I may, to what Gaetan just said about study groups.
Absolutely.
In my essay, I posited the thesis that we should think of study groups as schools, because I think that's where the main action for the dissemination of the Urantia book and its teachings takes place. And I say that because we should always remember that any human social organization, to maximize its effectiveness, should consciously, through prayer, intelligent prayer, based on faith, living faith, work with the angels, first of all, and that we have a cooperative relationship, I would argue, with the Master Seraphim. And secondly, this is also related in the larger scheme of things to the Supreme. The Supreme is registering in a cosmic way all of what we're doing. But the most important social organization in my life is my family, because it's personal, first and foremost personal. And there's something inherent in personality that craves company, craves relationships with other persons. As the Urantia book teaches, personality cannot perform well in isolation. We mortals are social creatures. I'm paraphrasing somewhat, but I'm using much of the book's language. We have a craving to belong. And they quote perhaps Aristotle, no man lives unto himself. And that's very, very true. The study groups would be the second most important social organization in my career, because it maximizes the duality of study and service. Study expands the mind, and service, as the book says, exercises the soul. Study groups, as institutions or social organizations, can most effectively do that because they're first and foremost personal, and then they're social. That is to say, they foster interaction between individuals and a group of individuals. I just wanted to add those points.
Those are very good points to add, Charles. I appreciate you being here and bringing those up. Well, thank you. All right. Well, I think, and Charles hit upon, one of my points there. So I think we all think that we're independent people, but we're all very much part of many different social organizations. And so just think about the social organizations that you yourself are part of. And I agree with Charles that our most important social organization that we belong to is our family. And then, like Gaetan says, a very important, probably the second most, is the study group. Study group helps you, understand the teachings better, but it also is a training ground for leadership and for how to talk to people about the book and the teachings. And I think a study group gives you the encouragement and the courage to go out and share the teachings and to live the teachings and use the teachings to solve problems in your own life. So study groups are indeed very important. So anyone else on that?
I managed to raise my hand.
Okay.
This is Barbara. Anyway, I love what both Gaetan and Charles said, because in an individual way, it all starts with the family, and the teaching of the Urantia book is that is the basic unit of society, is the family. And then beyond that, with the Urantia revelation, the study group is really the foundation of everything we do. And so, however, I'll introduce something that you may be addressing later on, Rick. If I were to ask, as a devoted student of the Revelation, the most important organization I belong to, I would say Urantia Brotherhood, but it no longer exists. And the reason it's the most important thing I ever did in my life is that it's new. It's something completely new to the planet. where we didn't have anything like that until, well, you have to go all the way back to the Planetary Prince. So for 200,000 years, we never even had a chance to organize as leaders in the way that Urantia Brotherhood tried to do. And it's still the most important organization I belong to, even if the central organization no longer exists.
Yep. And I'm sure it was that experience that makes you feel that way. The experience of serving in that organization and the relationships you built in that organization are why it's so important to you.
I could just, no, it isn't. That's personal. I have never seen an opportunity like that since among Urantia book readers. It hasn't even been seriously contemplated. And I don't think people in the original Brotherhood understood it. I never felt that way. And I started in 1965, and I served on the executive committee for 9 years during some of the most turbulent times. I don't think people understood the opportunity that was given to us in that organization, not for personal reasons, but to serve the planet.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool. Anyone else?
Yes. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Charles.
I just wanted to add something I couldn't earlier for mechanical reasons. There's something interesting about the question you originally raised, what is organization and what is social organization, which is secondary to the first question. The Urantia book defines relationships and systems differently than contemporary dictionaries and a dictionary from the 1920s and 30s. I use both. I have a dictionary that with definitions that Dr. Sadler and the Contact Commission would have been familiar with, and I have contemporary dictionaries 80 years later. In both time periods, relationships and systems were defined the same way, by two or more objects or persons. The Urantia book doesn't define it that way. It's specific, and I find this very interesting. It specifically defines, in terms of what is an organization, it defines relationships exist between two objects. You might add persons. That's how it defines a relationship. But a system means three or more objects or persons that eventuate into a group or a system. And I think that's very telling. I think that's, I don't know if it's revelatory per se, but it's akin to revelation in making that distinction. It's somewhat contrary to the conventions of society. So when we talk about social organization or organization in general, vis-a-vis the dissemination of the Urantia book and its teachings, we have a more precise, more distinction or designation of what that really means. And everybody that has said about the importance of organization here and in the universe, of course, are correct. We need leadership that can work in tandem, that can lead a group, but also work in tandem with the Master Seraphim and the Supreme. If there's to be a solution to our planetary difficulties, it'll be ultimately through organization. Bill Sadler Jr. made that point repeatedly as well, and I think necessarily so. That's all.
All right. Thanks, Charles. Jeannie, do we have anybody else with their hand raised?
So I want to say something about organization and the mean that Jesus take to prepare all the world to his annunciation. Jesus first learn people, learn how are people and how they, at what they are thinking about spirituality. And next, he go anywhere in the world and prepare people to receive his message for the future. And next, he come back and he teach the new revelation to some people, and these some people do the work next. to teach this revelation to other people. In our organization, I think we prepare people to teach to other people, but we don't have make the world to prepare the world to accept our teaching. So I think we need an organization who prepare the world to receive the Urantia book before teaching it. And it's a plan we are going to do in Europe, because in Europe there is a lack of preparation of all people to receive this book. That's all.
All right, thanks, Ivan. That's a very good point, that we need to prepare people to receive it before actually giving it to them, I guess. So.
Can I say something?
Sure, Zal, go ahead.
My understanding is the love that is unspeakable, the emptiness. I mean, Urantia doesn't use emptiness. I mean, in Zen, they use the emptiness, but that is the love, the God that it's alive, that is, couldn't just, I mean, no matter how well written the words are, it's still not it. It's still the finger that points to the destination, but it's not the destination. I think the love, the unspeakable, the alive love, truth, is the bond in social organization. The ability to experience and live that love out automatically connect you to cosmic organization. My spiritual journey just opened me up to a lot of organizations, a lot of spiritual friends. It's not done by me. I mean, of course, I just choose to accept, choose to follow the will of God, and then everything just opens, flows seamlessly. And I think that's the one thing. And if you have the one thing, the alive truth, the alive love, then you automatically, all the doors, all you need, it's open. I mean, do you know what I mean?
I think so, Al. It's those relationships you build that make everything else possible, for sure. All right.
And even,
Go ahead,
it's not planned by me, but it's so perfectly set it by the love, by the thing that is unspeakable, but is so joyful, so perfect.
Okay. Susan, real quick.
I'd like to comment on the things that Gaetan and Charles mentioned about the goal, the cosmic goal. I think in the past, a lot of us have thought study groups were the goal, forming study groups were the goal. But I see now that when we talk about the structure of NASA, that study groups are actually the infrastructure. They're not the goal. The goal is the cosmic unity and the awareness that we're doing this for God, for each other. That is the goal, to enhance that and to accomplish that on this planet. And something that you said, Ivan, about preparing the way for the revelation, we can look back at the history of the planet and the other revelations and how they actually made the world aware that there would be a next revelation, and another son, as in Van preparing the way for Adam and Eve when they were going to be received. And it took generations, but he let them know that there was going to be something to look forward to and some new truth to be received. And when you say that we need to prepare the world to receive this truth, I think that's very true, because right now people are afraid to receive new truth. So we do need to lay that foundation. So I appreciated your comment about that.
All right, thanks, Susan. All right, well, let's go ahead and move on here. So the last question I have there is, how many of you had a kid in soccer? You know, and I think we raise our hand again, and most all of us will raise our hand, you know, because we've all had a kid or a grandkid in soccer.
I don't have a kid.
well, okay. Someday maybe. So when my son was in soccer at the age of 8 or 9, and the games were just one mob of kids in a red shirt, you know, playing against a mob of kids in blue shirts, and all of them out there just trying to kick the ball. They didn't maintain their positions or follow leadership really, and you know, they didn't understand the game. They didn't understand what needed to be done to win the game. For them, the purpose of the game was just to kick the ball. There was no offense or defense, just trying to kick the ball. And it looked like one of those scenes from Animal Planet where you have a big swarming ball of, you know, fish all chasing each other around and never really knowing why, and they just change direction altogether in a whim. But as the kids get older and they start learning the importance of playing their position and staying in their area, they learn the value of leadership and the power of organization or teamwork. And those kids who were a horde running toward the ball were quickly and easily defeated by the kids who learned to do as the coach instructed and followed the team captain's play calling. So this is one of the great values of sports, I think, for young people. Sports, you know, uses games and fun and something the kids enjoy doing to teach them how to lead and how to follow, how to learn, how to teach, and how to use their mental and physical skills in the most appropriate way at the most appropriate time. It teaches them how to work and with others to accomplish a goal. So a sports team is an example of a social organization. So, and one of the most important services of any social organization is to facilitate communication between members of the organization, to provide for the development of relationships, and we kind of touched on that here already. The exchange of ideas, the coordination of efforts, and the accomplishment of goals. The more interaction that there is between members of a group, the more active the group becomes. No communication equals no action or no progress and no relationships. And communication within a social organization has always been one of my soapbox issues, where the more we communicate with each other about what's going on, what we're doing, what we need to do, what we need people to do, what resources we need, the more we can get done, the more we can accomplish. So, how when you were a child, the most important person in your life was your mom or dad. And your relationship with them was strong because you spoke with them every day, you saw them every day. But when you get to be an adult, you speak with them less and more with your spouse or your friends or whatever. And so your relationship with your spouse or your friends becomes stronger, and your relationship with your parents becomes less. Not because you love them any less, it's just because you interact with them less. And so I think our relationship with God is the same way. The more we communicate or commune with God, the Father, the closer we become with Him. So that's why prayer and worship are so important. And so communication within our social organization serves the same function. The more we communicate with the organization's members and with each other, with the leaders to the members, members to the leaders, you know, the more we communicate within the organization, the more we can get the people involved in the organization to do something. And the stronger that social organization becomes, and the more we can accomplish. Okay, so who's up next? Alfonso, would you mind reading the screen and making a comment on that? Would you would do that, please? Can you see it okay?
Is he?
Are you muted, Alfonso? Let's see. Where's he at? I don't see him anymore.
How about Ellen Gaynor?
All right, how about Ellen? Ellen, are you there? Where's Ellen?
Pio's on, it looks like.
Oh, Ellen, you're muted. See if I can unmute her. Okay. Oops, I went one too far there.
Pio has raised his hand.
Go ahead, Pio. Would you mind reading this and making a comment on it, please?
Okay, since nobody volunteered, I'm volunteering.
Okay, go ahead.
We might have to move the things over.
So, want me to read this, Rick, or what?
Yeah, if you would read it, and then you get the first chance to comment on it.
Uh-oh, okay. Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon. It is this ability to communicate and share meanings that constitutes human culture and enables man, through social associations, to build civilizations. Knowledge and wisdom becomes cumulative because of man's ability to communicate these possessions to succeeding generations, and thereby arise the cultural activities of the race, art, science, religion, and philosophy. Paper 160. Well, God gives us, one thing that makes us stand out from the animal kingdom is our vocalization and our ability to communicate. Monkey cannot communicate with a giraffe, vice versa, but I can communicate with my two poodles because of my initiative to communicate. So I think God gave us a purpose for this gift, is for us to form a social organization and in unison recognize Him as our Father, Creator, First Source, and Center, and gain as much experience together, not hating each other's guts, achieve our mission statement, and graduate to our next step and to our next job until we become perfect as He is perfect and go to Havana for future mission statements.
All right, thanks, Pio. All right, so let's go to the next screen here. Who's up next? Joe DiMaggio. Joe, good to have you. Are you? Would you like to read this one and comment on it, please? Unmute yourself. Are you there, Joe?
Are you talking to me?
No, I was Joe DiMaggio. If he's able to unmute himself, and if you'd like to comment, read this and comment. I'm not sure this is working out.
I have something to say.
Well, go ahead, Zal.
And can you send me the PPT after the workshop?
Oh, sure. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Well, I'll just go ahead and read this one.
I can read it.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. Ms. Flo. Go ahead.
Yes. Symbolic communication between human beings predetermines the bringing into existence of social groups. The most effective of all social groups is the family, more particularly the two parents. Personal affection is a spiritual bond which holds together these material associations. Well, we can see that it is a basic for everything. All the tolerance and acceptance and patience that we can develop and maintain in order to keep the family together brings us a more balanced personality, a more balanced way to act, trying to bring together everybody in just one goal, in just one ideal. And it is that communication that sometimes it is not precisely in words, but it exists, is there, that bring us in order to create a new way of thinking, more elevated way of thinking, to perceive, to accomplish an ideal, not precisely an idea, but an ideal. And that's what parents normally do, to try to elevate and to form and to preserve and to advance with a kind of love involved in that action that is a love, one of the most perfect love, because it doesn't wait for anything in return. It's just to accomplish the advancement of everything that is around us.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to comment on this screen before we go to the next one?
Yes, I would. Charles again.
Go ahead, Charles.
One of the great differences between mortals and animals is that we communicate through symbols, which has been more or less stated. That would include numbers, images, and language. And it's the last that I would emphasize. The significance of language is essentially that it's social. If you talk to yourself, you wouldn't grow very far. You would not develop. You can't develop. But you can't develop in isolation. You have to have relationships with other persons, both on a personal level and a group level, and this inevitably eventuates to organization. I think this is one of the reasons to the perennial question: why was the fifth epical revelation put in as a book in written form? It's because that's the best way, I think, through language, through written language, not just spoken, to safeguard the content of the revelation. The spoken language has many aspects available to it, from emotion, body language, facial expressions, tone of voice, as well as words. The written language, in that sense, is narrower. It depends on essentially syntax, coherence, cogency, grammatical structure. And if you want to best preserve and perpetuate for the generations ideas, facts, meanings, and values, the book puts it, then write them down. And this, interestingly, serves the whole aim of social organization vis-a-vis the dissemination of the book and its teachings.
All right. Thank you, Charles.
Oh, Rick, it's Barbara. That sentence, that personal affection is the spiritual bond, that is huge in the sense that people might think, oh, that's emotion, or certainly it's feeling. But to say that personal affection is a spiritual bond is just so central to the challenges we face in our world right now. Yeah. And I just wanted to comment that that's also what held the apostles close to Jesus, was that he was their best friend, and also his followers developed that personal affection with Jesus that really worked for them when he had left.
Right, and it's that personal affection that when they were discouraged or something shattered their hopes and dreams, that they still clung to Jesus because of their personal affection for him.
Exactly.
All right, thank you. Let me go to the next one here. So, social organizations. So today we're here to talk about social organizations as it relates to the Urantia revelation. And it seems to me that we're experiencing a transition from what we sometimes call old school methods to modern way of doing things. And in our case, old school often means organizations that have presidents and vice presidents and board members with rules and regulations, and who have boring meetings controlled by some guy named Robert with all of his rules. But for younger people, social organization is often a Facebook thing or a flash mob where one person they may never even met decides they want to do something. So they send out a Facebook post and ask people to help do it. So there's no organization in the beginning with things like that, just people wanting to do something and coming together to do it. So, but the reality of it is that everything we do, whether it's on Facebook or in a formal social organization such as Urantia Association International or the Urantia Book Fellowship, the same tasks need to be done, and leaders need to assign roles and responsibilities to make sure that everything gets done, and then the people or the members need to do them. And one of the differences, I think, between a formal social organization and is that a formal organization tends to be mission driven, and it has longevity and the ability to do many things over many years, where the informal social organization that seems to pop up on Facebook and things like that once in a while, they're kind of like the old one-hit wonder rock star. They're here today and gone tomorrow, but they did something great while they were alive. So there's good and bad things about both, of course, and I believe that even groups started on Facebook or Twitter, if that group of people want to have some longevity or develop a mission, then they eventually become a formal organization of some kind. So would someone read the just the blue text there, please? Someone want to read that and comment on
it? What page is it on?
I'll read it for you, Charles, and you can comment on it.
Okay.
This is from the publication mandate. It says, an early publication of the book has been provided so that it may be in the hand of be in hand for training of leaders and teachers. How do you think that relates to social organizations here?
It has everything to do with it, 100% completely. I've often reflected what I think is a great asset to our movement. We're currently, and have been since 1955, below the cultural radar or social radar of the mainstream of modern society. That's a tremendous asset for now, because it gives us time and space to organize, and to organize effectively, to prepare for the day when the public at large will become aware of the Urantia book and be in some way touched positively or negatively with its power, the power of its teachings, the revelatory power. We couldn't do that as individuals. We couldn't prepare for the time when the Urantia book, the revelation, goes public, in a manner of speaking, on an individual basis alone. That, I think, would be an impossibility to prepare for it. We can only prepare through organization. And in my opinion, it's not exclusively the study groups, but I would say they're the primary engine of organization. And because they have a potential, because they maximize the personal and the social. Conferences and other kinds of outreaches are very valuable and very useful, and the angels can work with those as well. But they can, if we develop at the publication mandate, which I subscribe to wholeheartedly, always have, makes great sense to me, of thousands and thousands of study groups, that will give the Master Seraphim a grounding from their perspective to work with on a vertical axis. It'll give us, in a social axis, a horizontal axis, the social opportunity to refine our organization, our organized efforts. At the same time, all of this respects individuality. This is not an ecclesiastical aim. It doesn't strive for conformity and uniformity. quite the opposite. It's based on the religion of the spirit, which allows for expression of individual, intellectual, and spiritual and emotional expressions. But it has to be done through organization. I don't see any other way it could be done.
All right, thank you, Charles. Anyone else want to comment on that real quick?
Hi, it's Barbara.
Go ahead, Barbara.
I consider this assembled group a group of leaders. So I wanted to say that, interestingly enough, what we call the publication mandate was actually only the introduction to the publication mandate. And so for the Urantia the Urantia Book Historical Society, I've been working on, a complete set of what all was given to the Forum and the Contact Commission back in the day. But this was an introduction, and there's a great deal more that we might consider if we really want to going forward. I'm glad people are willing to even consider the publication mandate. And to follow what Charles says, I think we're behind in preparing teachers and leaders. In a study group I was recently in, I said, who's our master seraphim or our chief of seraphim on Urantia? We had a good discussion, but this is a very experienced group, and no one could answer the question. So we really experience, and I'm thankful for all the groups that are doing it, the study groups and UBIS and UUI and all the groups that are getting involved. But I think we've created a tidal wave of readers with the digital book, and we need to upstep our game on education. These are things people would expect us to know, some of these types of things. It's one thing to read the book for spiritual inspiration, it's wonderful, but to really know the text is another thing.
If I may add to what Barbara, or try to add to what Barbara said,
Sure, Charles.
a teacher is more than a facilitator or instructor or presenter. A teacher has to know something, has to be able to deliver. Teacher has to be able to assess what has been delivered, to know that it indeed has been learned. The teacher has to have and coordinate all that with a mission. And then a teacher has to also manage such a process, such a relationship or interaction, such a group. To prepare teachers of the Urantia Book is an enormous challenge. It's doable. But consider that the Urantia Book is 2,097 pages of brilliant prose, and with tremendous revelatory depth and scope. So I don't think traditional methods of lecturing, even Q&A, can serve such an end. The closest to a pedagogy for teachers of the Urantia Book that I've come to is what we term in one of my educational circles at St. John's College is called, quote, intelligent conversation, close quote. Intelligent conversation is being demonstrated here and right now in this workshop. And first and foremost, a good teacher, as Jesus pointed out to Gaynard, must be a learner. It's almost a paradox. I wouldn't say it is, but you must first be a learner to be a good teacher, first. And then you must develop, as Jesus did, the art of listening. And there are many ways to listen. There are many levels to listen, and so forth and so on. I think that's the nature of the challenge to prepare teachers, but it's essential that it be done. And it would have to be organized in some fashion, even for those individuals, men and women, who have natural callings, who are called to do this, who have natural gifts to teach. Leadership, I think, is a different role. I mean, teachers will lead, but not in the sense, not in the broader sense of leadership. That has a different, the nature of that challenge is somewhat different. But in any case, the challenge is both on an individual level for such an individual, the teacher, or the leader, but it's also on a group level.
All right. Okay.
If I could add to that, Rick,
Sure.
in what Charles has said,
What?
and the others just before that about teachers. Of course, it's quite a task to train teachers, especially with the Urantia Book. And I will come to my first realization about teacher the Urantia Book. And I don't know the exact quote what it says, but I believe that to become a very effective teachers with the Urantia Book, we need to embrace those teaching in our own life, as not to just teach intellectually what the book says, but to be that teaching, to live that teaching. And I remember when at 14 years of age, 13 years of age, I wanted to become a missionary, and to do so, I would have to join an organization of religious teachers. In fact, it's an old organization that taught in my own country for years, religious education through intellectual means. And I remember going through that college, and their first task was to teach us how to become what we would teach through prayers, a lot of meditation, a lot of spiritual insight, a lot of spiritual guidance. They wanted us to become what we would teach. And sometimes we tend to, want to become a teacher and just, learn about the intellectual aspect of the book and teach those experts, tell people, here it is, what it is, by not having changed ourselves to embrace those truths. And when people, and that's coming also from my own experience, when my sister and my mother joined in a study groups and start reading the book. And when I asked them, why did they start reading the book? After I had told them many years before, and they told me, well, when you first, talked about the Urantia Book, we look at you and the type of life you were leading, and they thought you were just crazy. You wanted us to read that crazy book. And many, many years later, when I told them I was starting my first study group, and I think many years later, that's almost 20-something odd years later, and I asked them, well, why do you want to start a study group? You don't even read the book. And they say, yeah, we've been reading it for the last 2 years. Oh, why didn't you tell me? Well, we don't have to tell you everything. So I said to them, why did you start reading? Well, when we look at you, we saw the change. Then we thought there must be something good with that book to do something with you, because I had led. So I think people are looking also at us when we want to teach. And if we're not embracing those truths that we teach, well, they might just walk away from us. So the big task is twofold for us. I think we need to teach those intellectual aspects of the book, but also at the same time engage those people in transforming themselves spiritually, embracing those lives. And that, I think that can be accomplished through service. When people engage themselves in service to others, like Jesus told the apostle, go and minister to the poor and needy, then can we really effectively embrace those lessons in our own life and transform ourselves in true effective teachers. That's my take. Thank you.
I would agree with that. By living the teachings, you demonstrate the fact that you're loyal to them, that you actually believe them, because you're applying them to your own life. So that gives you credibility when you go to teach something.
Gilles raised his hand and then Joy.
Okay.
Yeah, just echoing what Gaëtan and others have been saying about living the teachings. If you look at what the sentence that is before the blue line we just read, is that but the publication of this book has not been postponed to that possibly somewhat remote date. I think this is in a section that talks about the fact that the book is for generation in the future, and who knows how far ahead of us. My point here is I don't think teaching the Urantia Book is about teaching about the universal absolute and the unconditional absolute and the triodities and blah, blah, blah. I think for the large part, the world is not ready for it. At best, what we can do is the study groups and get the people who are ready, the few who are, and study among each others. But the reality, in my opinion, is that the world at large is not ready for the broader scope, the more advanced topics. However, what is the world ready for is about the living, the teaching is the true faith, and faith that is dynamic without dogmas. And if you look at the prejudice that we have in this world, nothing is going to happen before breaking that, and that's in my opinion, the first step. So by living the teaching, by being ourselves an ambassadors of the kingdom, and having the spiritual light shining in our daily lives, then we are going to be able to, through our simple teaching, just simple, being able to little by little, one person at a time or one group at a time, to have an impact on them, and it takes a lot of time. And as I view it, is on one hand there is the closed group of Urantia readers, and trying to find new ones, new bright people who would be good students and who can understand a big part of the book and keep on perpetuating and teaching it to whoever can. But most importantly, build a broader base of people with the spirit and living it and communicating it. That's what I think needs to be done.
All right, thank you, guys. Joy, you're up next. Do you have a comment?
Yes, by the way, I figured out how to raise your hand on Zoom. You go to participants, and then under the list of participants, there, you can click a button that says raise hand or lower hand. Anyway, this is a little, it's on the topic, but it's a little off the thing that we just read. But I worked years ago for Pacific Bell Telephone Company when it had just separated from AT&T. And they recognized that a lot of their managers were not creative thinkers or doers in the organization. Whenever they needed to make a decision about anything, they simply opened up the rule book that had been printed by AT&T and followed whatever the rules were. And now that they were separated from AT&T, they recognized they were in a competitive world, and they needed to have their leaders or their managers, learn how to lead in a more dynamic way. And so they started what was called a leadership development forum. And one of the first things that they did through this leadership development forum was recognize that all the little departments in Pacific Bell, which had, gosh, I don't know, tens of thousands of employees, the little departments all were kind of fighting against each other. They were trying to show themselves that they were, so if there was ever a problem, for example, the department would always blame it on a different department. Oh, that problem is because this other department didn't do their job right. And so one of the big things in this leadership development of the entire organization of Pacific Bell was to say, hey, we're not in competition with each other. We need to work together as a team in order to compete with, other competition that's out there, that's outside of Pacific Bell. Okay, I say all this because it leads me to bring up the topic of union within the Urantia movement. And I feel, personally, I don't feel much loyalty toward either of the social organizations of the UAI or the fellowship. I mean, I actually volunteer in both organizations, but to me, the reason I don't feel a lot of loyalty is I just feel that there's still conflict, and it's very hard for me to
We're going to talk about that shortly here a little bit. So.
Okay, well, let me just finish my statement, and that is that, you know, I feel that from all the benefits that we know accrues from organization, like learning how to, it's a learning process. And to me, I feel that one of the most important things for both fellowship and UAI is to figure out a way to combine and organize ourselves again as one group, one organization. However we need to do that and however long it takes, I feel like that is an extremely important goal for us. After all, the midwayers have joined together in the United Midwayers of Urantia. It seems to me that in order to work toward the brotherhood of man beneath the fatherhood of God, at the very least, Urantia Book readers ought to learn how to work together in one group. And I feel it was very unfortunate that the Urantia Brotherhood got broken up, and we should work toward that union again.
All right, thanks, Joy. So we're running short on time. We've only got 20 minutes left here, and I've got way more stuff to cover than what, what we're obviously going to get to. But let's go ahead here. So I'm going to skip over a few things here, but let me just continue with this for the moment. So, you know, in our first week of study with, you know, Gaetan, Shalon led us in discovering, excuse me, just a second, this man's up next. Okay. So Gaetan led us in the discovery of the publication mandate, and the publication mandate was given to us to help us know how to organize our efforts and understand the importance of teachers and leaders. And the phrase teachers and leaders, whenever I hear that, causes me to also say students and followers, because teachers cannot learn to teach unless there are students needing to be taught. And leaders cannot learn to lead unless there are people needing to be led. So that's one of the important things a social organization provides, is that training ground for teachers and leaders, because in the social organization, you also have the students and the followers. And this also requires things that need to be taught, such as the Urantia Book teachings, and things that need to be done, such as dissemination of the teachings to the world. So the Urantia Book itself can't train teachers and leaders, but it does tell us how to train teachers and leaders and what good teachers and leaders do. And it tells us that we need social organizations to do that. So everyone on this call, and I know most of you somewhat, has been involved in Urantia-related projects through the years. And you know, how many projects have you done, you know, totally by yourself with no help from others? You know, probably none. But you can, of course, do that, but your reach and what you can accomplish is limited to what just one person can do. So let me go to the next screen here real quick. So I'll read this real quick. The cultural civilizations of the past and the present have been based upon the intelligent cooperation of the citizenry, or in our case, members of the social organization, with wise and progressive leaders. And until man evolves to a higher level, civilization will continue to be dependent on wise and vigorous leadership. So the social organization needs wise and vigorous leadership, but it also is a training ground for wise and vigorous leadership. So let's see, that's 13. Excuse me for speeding through some of this here, but I want to get to our conclusion here too. Well, this is important, I think, too. So where are we at? 13? Yep. Okay, so I conclude from this quote that an organization of people working together at the same time in the same direction for the same purpose is much more effective than the same number of people working for the same purpose individually and separately. There's a different form of math that applies to groups and social organizations. In a group, you could say that 1 + 1 = 3, or 2 + 2 = 8. And we all know this, but we often try to go it alone because it is easier to do something ourselves than to try to get others to help us. You know, sometimes people don't want to help, or some say they'll help, but then they don't. Or some think your idea is good, but their idea is better. So leading is often frustrating, but from what the Urantia Book tells us, I suspect that we all need to practice. or whatever we've got, coming in the future. So until people learn to teach and lead themselves through self-mastery, they need teachers and leaders to guide them through life. Children need parents, students need teachers, employees need managers, citizens need political leaders and civil authority, and the Urantia Revelation certainly needs social organizations to train teachers and leaders. So everything from paradise on down to your child's birthday party that we talked about before is organized. And the potential of such organization is the multiplication of power, whether it's physical or mental or spiritual power. And that's the real benefit of the social organization. Okay, so I'm going to buzz through these next screens here real quick. So living associations, human families, social groups, or the Paradise Trinity are not augmented by mere arithmetical summation. The group potential is always far in excess of the simple sum of attributes of the component individuals. And someone mentioned this earlier, I don't remember who now, but the group is more than just the sum of the individuals in the group. It's not only in the realms of life, but even in the world of physical energy, the sum of two or more things is often something more than or something different from the predictable additive consequences of such unions. Again, that's like what I was saying before, 1 + 1 in the normal world is 2, but when you put that in a social organization or a group, 1 + 1 will be in effect 3 because it builds on that that power. You get more power out of a group than you would out of just the sum of whatever individuals you would have. Now, let's go ahead and skip through some of these here. These are all making the same point there. So let's see, where am I at here? So what are some of the social organizations that we find in the Urantia book? And again, I'll go through these. If someone has a comment you want to make, just say so. And I don't want to take too much time and hold everybody past our 2 o'clock or 2 hours here. So one of the organizations is celestial government. So the celestial government, and as I was saying earlier when I found the Urantia book, that was one of the things that intrigued me about how we think everything just happens, but the celestial government, the governing of an organization of everything from paradise on down to us, how impressive that was to me when I found the book. Did I hear someone want to make a comment?
Yes.
Go ahead, Charles.
First, I'd like to read briefly what an archangel says about leadership, or wrote about leadership. It's in the paper 81, Development of Modern Civilization. Leadership is vital to progress. Civilization is never really jeopardized until able leadership begins to vanish. And able leadership is described as wisdom, insight, and foresight. And the quantity, this is the archangel again, his words, the quantity of such wise leadership has never exceeded 1% of the population. For the United States, that would be approximately 3 million persons at a maximum, or something less than that. I just was asking the question, how much of the leadership in our movement is wise? And wisdom is interestingly defined, page 215, paper 19, section 1, paragraphs 5 and 6. I memorized that some time ago. Spiritual wisdom, which is italicized, is defined as knowledge and perception and discernment of the origin, history, and destiny of any aspect or phase of the universe reality, including our world, of course. So I think we need in our movement leadership that is wise in that sense. That is to say, individual persons who understand and are willing to apply a frame of reference, a perspective, a perception based on the origin, history, and destiny of any particular, of the mission of the book, the mission of the revelation, or any particular question or issue or can find someone who can, and then address that. And it's, to me, I think it's an interesting question, is how many of those who lead in our movement are truly wise by that measure. But we're called upon to be wizened by that measure. It's not just an academic exercise. And I want to add something parenthetically that's been said by 2 or 3 persons on this call. Without the love of God, a lot of this is moot. And it's only with the love of God that wise leadership, that wisdom, insight, and foresight are enhanced, are made effective from a celestial point of view, the Father's point of view, and Michael. And I don't know how that can be done apart from some kind of interaction through mind to the spirit of truth that each thought adjuster within us, each person's whom I refer to when I talk to him as my divine friend that's within us, and the angels. There would be others, the midwayers, but I'm simplifying it. We must learn, I think, as a movement, to pray on a group level and worship on a group level more effectively, more earnestly, more humbly. Remember that Jesus said our faith should be childlike, and I think that's what that means. A childlike faith is a genuinely humble faith, not childish, which is ignorant and superstitious and prejudiced. And I think wise leadership necessarily calls for this. And I would say essentially the same applies to teachers as well.
All right, thank you, Charles.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we'll get back to our list of the social organizations as presented in the Urantia book. So, of course, there's a celestial government. And forgive me for buzzing through these, but we've got less than 10 minutes left here. But the celestial government and the angels, even the angels are organized, and it does, 12 different ways, 12 different levels of organization within the angels. The first epical revelation, the government of Caligastia was organized. You had the 10 boards there, 10 councils. Adam and Eve were organized. One of the first things they did was set up organization. And our family is very much an organization, a social organization. And this I think is important here. It talks about how the red man, their family structure was different than what we see as our family structure today. So they failed to create an lasting society. But the Chinese had a more strong family social organization. So the structure of the family is extremely important to the strength of social organizations and to society as a whole. And I think we've talked about that several times already, about how the family is the basic social organization, the most important social organization for everything else that follows from that. Even the apostles were organized. They all had their tasks that they were assigned to do, and we won't go through all that. But each one of those was organized, and a lot of what you see there, the way they were organized, is reflected in social organizations or corporations or any kind of group today, and how they function and how successful organizations work because of this kind of structure and organization. So Christianity is organized, as most religions are. Most religions, have some form of organization, but Christianity certainly has, its own degree of organization. So, and then cults. Your Urantia book talks about cults, but I think in your Urantia book, when it talks about cults, it's not talking about cults in the way that we perceive them today as being some evil entity or whatever. Back then, as Charles was mentioning earlier about the dictionary from the 1920s and 30s, and I've got one of those here, where it talks about what cult meant. This was from a dictionary back in 1924. let's see, which one did I want to read here? Says the rites, ceremonies, or externals of a religion as distinguished from its internal meaning or truth. For example, that which was the religion of Moses is the ceremonial or cult of the religion of Christ. So the word cult there was had a little different meaning 100 years ago. So study groups. So Gaetan, and several others have mentioned that, how important study groups are as social organizations. So let me see if I can move this out of my way here, because I'd like to read that part. So study groups are social organizations, and we often come to consider our study group as our study group family. And we often spend a lot of time in sharing our life events and activities during study group. And study groups, they must have some organization. There's a host or a person who first desires to create the group, and then a group leader who either runs the study period or leads the group in deciding what and how to study. The group leader serves to keep the group on topic and on time, and to prevent confrontations and disagreements, to facilitate the conversations. And the members of the group then apply what they learn to their own life and go out and share it with courage and confidence with those around them. And ideally, study group members become study group hosts of their own. That's where the training of teachers and leaders becomes part of the social or the study group activity, that people who participate in a study group then become leaders of study groups. And that's how we get more and more, we accomplish our goal of thousands of study groups. So political government, that's a social organization for sure. Choosing good leaders. So let's see, where are we at on time here?
Rick, can you slide over you just passed through one more slide before this. Can we see that too?
Oh, sure. Oops, sorry. This one?
No, the one before that. Oh yeah, that one. I wanted to read the sex and hunger stuff.
Oh, this one, okay. Wait till it settles down there. Okay, go ahead, Pio, if you'd like to read that.
Political government. Sex, hunger, and mother love establish the family, but real government does not appear until super family groups have begun to form. So what does a super family group here mean?
Well, for me, I think that means that you start out with the basic family of the mother, the father, and the children, and then you have two families, which is like neighbors, let's say, and then you have another family and another family that all live together and make a community. And that community expands until it becomes a state, and that state of people becomes, a nation. But that would kind of be my take on what a super family group is. Anybody else want to comment on that?
Yes, the prefix super means to be above or higher than, as in supernatural, Superman, that sort of thing. And I agree with you. According to the Urantia Book, what will ultimately manifest, a super family ultimately manifests itself in the brotherhood of a world federal system that is a worldwide political federalized system, which means essentially you have a strong center and strong member units. There are three basic types of government, and that is kind of like a middle type between the two extremes. And when the sense of brotherhood becomes genuine and spreads, it will do so in the format of a family. The definitions or lexicons, the words, the phrases used will be family related. And this is because personality. This is an eventuation from personality. The human family, at its best, mirrors the family design or structure of the universe, beginning with paradise. We have the universal father. We have the eternal mother son. We have Michael, the creator sons, and including our beloved Michael, is our local universe fathers. The planetary princes, the loyal ones at least, are planetary fathers. They're father figures. that's a family lexicon. And the entire Jesus himself made my point explicit. He said, when he said that someday I'm paraphrasing a little bit, when the universe will be better understood not as a kingdom but as a family. There's a greater truth in the family concept than the kingdom concept. So a super family would embrace, I think, everything from the small, numerically small units on inhabited worlds to the whole of that world. Over time, this will happen through genuine brotherhood all the way to paradise and then back again. The Supreme is described as our brother, and I think also as our mother. Again, a family lexicon. It's not a kingdom. It's the family is somebody. I think it was Barbara who mentioned the importance of affection between persons, and I think one of the characteristics of advanced light and life is an affectionate regard for all other persons, all other personalities, and we will experientially come to terms with this directly in our ascension career, all the way to and to paradise and then from paradise, and as finalities. And Jesus of Nazareth, for our world, set the standard for that. We have only to look at him, look at his life and teachings, how he lived, and how he taught, and what he taught, to understand this and to see it in action. So the family is more than the foundation of civilization. It is that, but it's a great deal more. It could only be the foundation of civilization because the entire universe is founded on it. At least I believe that. That's one of the insights I take from the Urantia book.
All right, thanks, Charles. Yes, the family is, as we said earlier, the most important social organization because everything else builds upon that. Go ahead, Susan, real quick.
I'd like to just respond to that just quickly. When you were speaking of that, I was reminded of Jesus talking to John Mark and the fact that he had been raised in a healthy home as Jesus had been, with affectionate parents. And I think the recognition of mankind to the fact that we have affectionate parents, heavenly parents, will help to rein us in as feeling in a family group and in a wise and affectionate home family, when we realize that we aren't alone, that we have these creator parents and that we belong to that family, and recognize that and behave accordingly. That's all I have to say.
All right, thanks, Susan. Well, we're 2 minutes past the end of our time allowed here, and I don't want to keep everyone over.
Flora wanted to say
yes,
something.
Rick, one observation. I see that you have a lot of material, and in my opinion, all of those points are so interesting. Why have you considered making a second session in which you could show us all your material? Because I think it is good, and it's a good point to talk all of us about that. It's just a suggestion.
Yeah, I think you're right. I thought I had organized this in a way that allowed plenty of time for discussion and to get through everything, but obviously I probably should have made 2 sessions instead of 1. So yeah, I probably should have.
Don't berate yourself, Rick. Don't berate yourself. One of the hardest skills of teaching, I've taught for almost 45 years, over 4,000 high school students. I know whereof I speak. One of the most difficult skills is to implement a curriculum in reference to time and the interaction of a group of persons. It's one of the most difficult to achieve. It's always problematic, but nothing is lost. Everything that's been said will be retrieved if the Father in Paradise and Michael in Solvington agree with it, and I believe they would. But it's a very challenging skill to have, very difficult thing to carry out.
Well, it's very rewarding to get everybody's input and everybody giving such great comments and input. So I'm not complaining. I probably should have scheduled for 2 instead of just 1. So I'm thrilled here, honestly.
Pio wants to say something.
Go ahead, Pio.
Rick, is this going to be periodical? This is a very good way to spend a Saturday morning for me. So is it going to be like, ongoing thing?
Sure. Jeannie, would you like to comment on that?
Yes, we are having these meetings every Saturday until December 16. Every Saturday. Yes.
Every week.
Yes, for now. Yes.
Then who will be the host? Rick did a fantastic job today. Will there be a volunteer every Saturday?
Yes, we have presenters, volunteer presenters every Saturday.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, Jenny.
Thanks to you for coming. I think Gilles wants to speak.
Okay, Gilles, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a good thing. It's going to be very quick. It's to answer Pio's question regarding the superfamily. If you look at our families, that's the highest human concept or enterprise. And if you look at what it's based on sex. And at the heart of it, our families are based on sex. So I think superfamily is about having higher motives. Like, for example, love, like, for example, a spiritual project, like teaching or something like that. That's the way I interpret it. That's all.
All right, thank you. Let me get into my conclusion here, and we'll wrap this up so everybody can get on with their Saturday here. And I appreciate so much all the comments and the input and the participation here, because that's what really makes any social organization, successful. So this slide here is a quote that we've all seen. So, religionists as a group must never concern themselves with anything but religion, albeit any one such religionist as an individual citizen may become an outstanding leader in some social, economic, or political reconstruction movement. So it's important for us to also be members of social organizations, outside of the Urantia movement, I think. So, because we can go out there and make a real difference in the world. And never doubt that we can change the world. In fact, we have changed the world. We're already changing the world, I believe, and we'll continue to do so. One of the things I saw on Amazon.com recently was the Urantia book has 14 million likes from Facebook. 14 million likes. So let's not, consider ourselves to be a small community anymore, because we're really not. The internet has really expanded the reach of what we're trying to do here. And so, there's 14 million people out there that have liked the Urantia book, or liked a quote from the Urantia book, or aware of the Urantia book. So,
Rick,
yes.
this is the tidal wave. This is Barbara. That's the tidal wave.
Right.
It's coming.
It certainly is. It certainly is. And it's thrilling to be part of it, and it's thrilling to see it coming. So what are the benefits of being a member of a social organization, and in particular a Urantia social organization? And I think the answers are friendship, teamwork, opportunity, service, experience, training, and progress. And those are all important things to us as individuals. That's why we're so important to the social organization, and social organization is important to us. When someone asks, when we talk about our social organizations, they ask, well, what's in it for me? You can tell them now. When someone asks, why join your social organization, whatever it may be, I hope that you have a good list of reasons to give them now. So, let's go forth proclaiming the gospel, but also let's go forth serving our family, our friends, and our Urantia brothers and sisters by joyfully, actively participating in whatever social organizations that we may find spiritually rewarding. So as a final thing here, we're way over time, and I apologize for that. But so I just want to do something here that may be a little different, maybe a touch controversial, I don't know, but I hope it's inspiring and enlightening for you. But I want to read something that I've modified just a little bit. And I think it makes a very important point. The cult type of social organization persisted because it provided a symbolism for the preservation and stimulation of moral sentiments and religious loyalties. The social organization grew out of the traditions of old families and was perpetuated as an established institution. All families have a social organization of some sort. Every inspiring ideal grasps for some perpetuating symbolism, seeks some technique of cultural manifestation which will ensure survival and augment realization. And the social organization achieves this end by fostering and gratifying emotion. From the dawn of civilization, every appealing movement in social culture or religious advancement has developed a ritual, a symbolic ceremonial. The more this ritual has been an unconscious growth, the stronger it has gripped its devotees. The social organization preserves sentiment and satisfied emotion, but it has always been the greatest obstacle to social reconstruction and spiritual progress. Notwithstanding that the social organization has always retarded social progress, it is regrettable that so many modern believers in moral standards and spiritual ideals have no adequate symbolism, no social organization of mutual support, nothing to belong to. But a religious social organization cannot be manufactured. It must grow. And those of no two groups will be identical unless their rituals are arbitrarily standardized by authority. The early Christian social organization was the most effective, appealing, and enduring of any ritual ever conceived or devised. But much of its value has been destroyed in a scientific age by the destruction of so many of its original underlying tenets. The Christian social organization has been devitalized by the loss of many fundamental ideas. In the past, truth has grown rapidly and expanded freely when the social organization has been elastic, the symbolism expansile. Abundant truth and an adjustable social organization have favored rapidity of social progression. A meaningless social organization vitiates religion. And vitiates, I believe, means to harm or to hurts, basically. Hurts religion. When it attempts to supplant philosophy and to enslave reason, a genuine social organization grows. Regardless of the drawbacks and handicaps, every new revelation of truth has given rise to a new social organization, and even the restatement of the religion of Jesus must develop a new and appropriate symbolism. Modern man must find some adequate symbolism for his new and expanding ideas, ideals, and loyalties. This enhanced symbol must arise out of the religious living, spiritual experience. And this higher symbolism of a higher civilization must be predicated on the concept of the fatherhood of God and be pregnant with the mighty ideal of the brotherhood of man. The old social organizations were too egocentric. The new must be the outgrowth of applied love. The new social organizations must, like the old, foster sentiment, satisfy emotion, and promote loyalty. But it must do more. It must facilitate spiritual progress, enhance cosmic meanings, augment moral values, encourage social development, and stimulate a high type of personal religious living. The new social organizations must provide supreme goals of living, which are both temporal and eternal, social and spiritual. No social organization can endure and contribute to the progress of social civilization and individual spiritual attainment unless it is based on the biologic, sociologic, and religious significance of the home. A surviving social organization must symbolize that which is permanent in the presence of unceasing change. It must glorify that which unifies the stream of ever-changing social metamorphosis. It must recognize true meanings, exalt beautiful relations, and glorify the good values of real nobility. But the great difficulty of finding a new and satisfying symbolism is because modern man, as a group, adhere to the scientific attitude, eschew superstition, and abhor ignorance, while as individuals, they crave mystery and venerate the unknown. No social organization can survive unless it embodies some masterful mystery and conceals something worthy but unattainable. Again, the new symbolism must not only be significant for the group, but also meaningful to the individual. The forms of any serviceable symbolism must be those which the individual can carry out on his own initiative, and which he can also enjoy with his fellows. If the new social organization could only be dynamic instead of static, it might really contribute something worthwhile to the progress of mankind, both temporal and spiritual. But a social organization, a symbolism of rituals, slogans, or goals, will not function if it's too complex. There must be the demand for devotion, the response of loyalty. Every effective religion unerringly develops a worthy symbolism, and its devotees would do well to prevent the crystallization of such a ritual into cramping, deforming, and stifling stereotype ceremonials, which can only handicap and retard all social, moral, and spiritual progress. No social organization can survive if it retards moral growth and fails to foster spiritual progress. The social organization is the skeletal structure around which grows the living and dynamic body of personal spiritual experience, true religion. That's it for me. What I did there was I took the section from the book called The Nature of Cultism, paper 87, section 1, excuse me, paper 87, section 7, paragraph 1, and I replaced the word cult in there with the term social organization. So I think that was important. I think it had a lot to say and a lot that we need to take recognition of. So that's it for me, Jeannie. Thanks to everybody. I appreciate it so much and really enjoyed it. So thanks.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you very much. Excellent presentation.
Thank you, Rick.
Have learned a lot today. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, everyone, for coming. It was a pleasure to share this session with all of you. God bless you. Have a nice weekend and a beautiful week.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everybody.
Amen.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Amen.